For every Roblox game that is loved by all, there are also games that are hated by many, and today we'll be covering all of them. Starting with a game that arguably has one of the worst reputations on the platform, The Hood. Developed by Benoxa, The Hood was inspired by the streets, where players can either commit crimes or stop crimes from happening. Despite the fact that this game had no updates for over a year, players have remained loyal, continuing to support the developers. However, this community completely flipped sides as the game quickly spiraled into something much darker. The Hood became infamous for its rampant toxicity, where spawn killing became the norm. However, this wasn't anything new. Instead, it became notorious for having some of the most widespread cheating seen in any Roblox game, including aimbot, wall hacks, and speed exploits, all of which that gave cheaters a massive game-breaking advantage. This toxic environment was made even worse with the rise of raiding, where small groups of players would flood into servers just to harass and kill anyone not part of the crew. It became so common that the game was nearly unplayable for new or casual players. But to make matters worse, Lumu, one of the Hood's main developers, allegedly began offering secret unbanned services for just $20 per user, thus defeating the entire purpose of the ban system. As if things couldn't get any worse, the Hood found itself in yet another controversy. This time over a feature that was supposed to revive the game, the Hood Stars. The idea was simple: reward top players and crew leaders with exclusive star badges to recognize their skill and dedication. It had the potential to re-energize the entire community. However, things quickly took a turn when Draco Baby, the original creator of the feature, handed management off to a team member, Bullet. People started noticing something was up. Badges were supposed to be rewarded fairly by the developers, and were instead given almost exclusively to Bullet's close friends, immediately sparking accusations of blatant favoritism from the community. The situation only escalated when he allegedly hosted rigged events that only his friends were invited to. What was meant to be a fresh start ended up being yet another blow to the game's reputation, further fueling the Hood's very much deserved downfall. But while the game struggles to remain relevant, Dead Rails stands as the complete opposite. Released on February 1st, 2025, Dead Rails is a survival adventure game developed by Rico Mella and the Memer Monkey. The game is set on the American continent, where the player, along with the crew, has to jump on an old train and ride through a brutal, scorching desert that is infested with the dead. Initially, no one cared whether the game existed or not. However, the game saw a sudden incredible growth, surpassing popular games like Brookhaven, Blox Fruits, and even its competitor, A Dusty Trip. And one of the major reasons why the game is so popular was the fact that it wasn't pay to win unlike other games. Now, compare that to Dusty Trip, which has a very bad reputation for being extremely pay to win, something that has only worsened ever since it was acquired by two big studios. Remember this name, as we'll be talking about them once again. Dead Rails offered not only a more polished and engaging experience, but also one that respected players' time and money. While it includes a few microtransactions, they have very minimal impact on the gameplay and don't give players a major advantage. Another reason why this game is so loved by many is the community. The game requires a lot of teamwork to win, which naturally brings players together, as they all share one common goal: winning. As a result, many players invite their friends to join, which helped the player base grow bigger and bigger, eventually hitting a whopping 1 million active players. On top of that, many players say Dead Rails captures the classic Roblox vibe thanks to its nostalgia, building style, and gameplay that reminds them of the platform's early days. While the game has faced some criticism for its slow progression, Dead Rails proves that a game doesn't have to be a dopamine-driven slot machine to earn a spot at the top of Roblox's homepage. The next game, however, takes the opposite approach, and that game is none other than Sol's RNG. Developed by Sol Studio, Sol's RNG is an AFK style game where players simply click a roll button to obtain auras. Despite its minimal gameplay, the game skyrocketed to over 200,000 active players, triggering a flood of copycat RNG games across the platform. Most of these games, if not all, are intentionally designed to keep players hooked. Rather than focusing on fun or meaningful interaction, many developers have taken the easier route, building games that prioritize retention over enjoyment, a trend that continues to harm the platform today. And to make matters even worse, the auras are solely dependent on the player's luck, and there's no other way to gain it. The game has many types of auras, starting with the common to extremely rare ones, but the chance of getting some of the most rarest auras are so astronomically high that it's close to impossible to obtain it. Take for example the luminosity aura, which has a probability of obtaining it as 1.2 billion, or the oppression aura, which has a 1 in 220 billion, and can only be rolled inside the glitch biome. Even though Souls RNG is one of the few games that don't rely heavily on in-game purchases, it provides close to zero gaming experience, and many don't even consider it as a game. The next title, however, took a bold step that no other Roblox game had ever dared to, and that's exactly why it earned so much love in the community. Released on December 25th, 2024, Forsaken is an asymmetrical horror, meaning one player plays as a killer, while the other plays as a survivor, with each having their own set of objectives to win the game, heavily inspired from the popular survival game Dead by Daylight. While this might sound like your typical killer versus survivor game, the developers did something totally unique. Instead of creating new characters, the developers decided to use classic Roblox figures like John Doe, Cool Kid, and Shedletsky, and other iconic characters, creating a massive hype in the community. The lore building and story is done in such a way that players play for it rather than the whole gameplay experience. Take for example the mysterious John Doe, a testicon created by the CEOs of Roblox, David Baszucki and Eric Hassel. Although it's just a typical anonymous name, rumors began to spread in 2017 that John Doe would hack Roblox, creating a massive uproar in the community. While this turned out to be false, it immortalized John Doe as an urban legend, who now continues to live on in the game. As one fan pointed out, I used to play Forsaken a lot, quite frequently, or for hours straight when it had 800 to 1000 players. Honestly, what drew me in at the time was the lore. The lore is related to Roblox and its history. It's fun. Not only that, but Forsaken also gives survivors an advantage by giving them special abilities, unlike other games where the survivor is too difficult to take on. But while the game is criticized for the lack of scary elements, this had turned out to be a blessing, as it now appeals to people of all ages. But the same cannot be said about the next games, which are infamous for having some of the most disgusting plays on the whole platform. We're talking about the Condo Games. Condos are a type of roleplay where players purchase hotels or apartments to engage in highly explicit or inappropriate behavior. More often than not, players are found using adult-looking avatars, performing provocative animations, and engaging in questionable conversation, which in most cases is with underage kids. As time went by, the popularity of these games began to rise, bringing in more degeneracy unlike anything seen before. Seeing this, Roblox began taking action by getting rid of these games, as they were clearly going against its community guideline policy. However, this didn't stop the games from shifting to Discord, where the same degenerate behavior continued. And by far, one of the biggest problems with these Condo games is how easily accessible they are to children. These games have become a tool for bad actors to target young users who make up most of the platform. Although these games advertise and claim themselves as 18+ only, and even include signs or warnings, in reality, there is no system to actually verify the age of the player. This means all the player has to do is click and enter to get exposed to the platform's most disturbing and harmful content. Perhaps the most disgusting part of it all is the business behind such games. The creators of these games are making real money by selling not safe to work avatars and running VIP servers through Discord groups. Unfortunately, most of these communities are filled with kids who have no idea what they're getting into before it's too late. While Condo games have a massive negative impact on Roblox as a whole, the next game on the list not only took the platform by storm, but also has such a loving community which Condo games could only dream of. Grow a Garden is a multiplayer farm simulator game that was developed by GoHUD Studio with the help of Jandal. This game went on to hit multiple records by becoming the first game to reach 5 million and 10 million concurrent players, earning the title of the fastest growing game on the platform. And it didn't stop there. On May 31st, the game released an event called Busy Bees, a collaboration with Bee Swarm Simulator, which helped them achieve a new milestone, reaching a whopping 16 million players, the highest ever for any Roblox game. To put that into perspective, Fortnite's all-time peak just 6 months ago was 14 million. In Grow a Garden, players start by buying seeds to grow crops in their empty plot. Once the crops are grown, the players can harvest it and sell it for the in-game currency, shekels. Apart from the random events and mutated plants, there are other features like the pet shop and the gear shop, making the game even more enjoyable. However, what truly makes Grow a Garden stand out is how friendly the community is. Many players don't just treat it as a place to farm or grow crops, but as a place to relax, chat, and hang out with their friends. Even if it's a stranger, players help each other as much as possible, like giving away extra seeds and sharing tips and creating a safe environment free from toxicity. As one player commented, "I got a lot of help starting out, so I like to give fruits and even pets if the person doesn't seem to have any. It really is such a nice community." And it's not just online either. In places like Philippines, internet cafes are packed with kids yelling and counting down to an event. It's loud, it's hectic, and it's crazy that this game blew up so hard that they have entire cafes waiting for the update to drop. However, due to its growing popularity, people have taken sides, with some supporting the game and others calling it complete slop. That sentiment only got worse after Do Big Studios, the same studio behind Blade Bowl and Fish, announced that they had purchased a minority stake of the game. And I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat Grow a Garden. A large chunk of the community has been calling it a dopamine slop game, saying it doesn't deserve its fame, with just 3 main buttons: seeds, garden, and sell. The entire gameplay loops boils down to clicking a few buttons and watching your crops grow. It's fast, it's simple, and that's exactly why people say it's designed to feed your brain quick hits of dopamine. Since Two Big Studios got involved, microtransactions have only increased. Players have pointed out that the game is so basic, even a toddler can understand it. As one player stated, "For some reason, most of Roblox players love to play a game that barely has any gameplay. They don't want to play actually good games that have complex mechanics to make it good, because they just can't comprehend the complexity." Many fans believe that this is the beginning of the end, and the game might slowly fall off, which was seen in games like Fish that had an all-time high of 500k players to now struggling to even sustain 15,000 active players. Still, many hope that Grow a Garden might avoid the same fate by not repeating the same mistakes that Fish made. While there are plenty of other games that could easily fall into either category, one thing remains clear: it's the developers who shape the direction and the reputation of these experiences. If you're curious about which developers are most loved or hated, click this video on screen to find out.